Welcome once again. Apologies for that slight glitch in the system, but we're back now. And of course, good morning to our viewers here in Nigeria, across the world, and anywhere you might be watching us from this morning. We, of course, you'd have the next 2 hours to share with you some of the major conversations happening here in Nigeria. Welcome to Breakfast Central. I am Osaugie Ogbonwa.
And I am Olive Emwadi. Thank you very much for starting your Thursday morning with us. It's still a continuing tale of fuel scarcity here in Nigeria. In Lagos, where we're broadcasting live from, we've seen queues. Even, the most pathetic part of it would be that in filling stations where they have no fuel, there's still long queues outside, with Nigerians being hopeful that they would eventually get to buy fuel. And I think there's nothing more pathetic than the scenes that we've seen Osaugie with. I think the saddest ones would be the Nigerian filling stations where they're not open and then there are long queues outside. People who probably slept there overnight or who came as early as 2, 3 a.m. to form a queue waiting for the fuel to be sold. Whether or not the filling stations will sell fuel, nobody knows. NNPC is still giving us the semantics of shortfall and, not having paid subsidy. And right now, even though they're declaring really high profits, the Nigerians are asking, what's the gain? How does this translate to making life easier for Nigerians? If you're talking about declaring profit that when you convert to dollars is actually lower than it was last year. Yeah. So if you also do a comparative analysis with what others are making. So at the end of the day, yes, you're making 3.3 trillion naira this year, or you've made 3.3 trillion naira, but how does that affect the average Nigerian?
If there was going to be a list on the things that degrade the average Nigerian the most, these repeated petrol scarcity situations would definitely be one of them, because everyone needs to. If you haven't gone to queue for petrol, at least just walk around the petrol stations around you and just look at the faces of those people who are there. And that's the only thing you probably would see. It's people who are degraded by their own government and failure of their government to provide those very basic necessities. That's what you see there. In every petrol station. And yes, on our way to work this morning, we did see some petrol stations where cars obviously slept over there because petrol stations weren't even open, but you have queues that were, as long as, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer long queues. It's the most degrading thing that happens to the average Nigerian every now and then. But the thing for me is, it's of no effect. And this is what I mean. The level of degradation that petrol scarcity queues and the scarcity brings to Nigerians is almost of no effect, because you never even hear these things come into conversations when it's time to vote. Like, Nigerians go through this
and they forget.
And they forget, a couple of months later. I remember there was even people who, were bragging that, the Buhari administration didn't have petrol scarcities or repeated petrol scarcities, which isn't true. But the point is, the level of degradation that Nigerians have to go through just to buy petrol and and go through these days and maybe weeks of petrol scarcity, it's still not enough to convince the average Nigerian, when it's time to vote. They still don't bring these things up. That very, I'm not what level of amnesia that happens to Nigerians, but I also feel like there's going to be some new thing the government is going to do a couple of weeks later that's going to make you forget the pain of 2 weeks ago. And that's maybe why.
There's nothing that it would seem that government is going to do, because you're asking, where is the Minister of Petroleum? Where's the group CEO of NNPC? Yesterday, Mele Kyari put out a picture on Twitter that shows he's on some sort of a religious pilgrimage in Addis Ababa. And Nigerians, we are criticizing him because your country doesn't have petrol. There are queues that are long from here to Sokoto, and yet you are able to go on a religious pilgrimage.
That's
and nobody's saying you shouldn't go on a religious pilgrimage. But at this time, when Nigerians are, don't have hope right now, because that's what it looks like. Nigerians don't have hope of where they'll get fuel or when the situation will be resolved. No explanation. If I look on his X page, the last 3 tweets, so the last one is at NNPCL, we are committed to raising the next generation of leaders. Before that, it's the one of the religious pilgrimage. And before that, NNPCL records 3.3 trillion naira. Before that, the 3.3 trillion profit declared for 23 is the highest since the company's inception. Then after that, so at the end of the day, is this indicative of somebody who understands the plight that Nigerians are going through? They are far removed. And also because there are no consequences and there are no repercussions for actions. How dare you travel?
Obviously, no consequences.
Obviously. You travel when there's fuel scarcity. And it's not just regular fuel scarcity. It's fuel scarcity that's lingered for this longer time.
Yeah, again, what I'm pointing out this morning is that no matter how horrible this looks, it's never seemed to show. Yeah, I mean, so Nigerians will deal with, would survive this one, and then there'll probably be another one in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and they'll survive that one again. And when it's time for Nigerians to make those decisions, and put a stop and demand better, you would almost, it's a struggle to see people come together and say that this is not never going to happen to us again.
They'll still bring in tribal and religious sentiments. They won't remember that at the end of the day, fuel scarcity is not peculiar to a certain group or a certain tribe, and everybody's plagued by the chaos of fuel scarcity.
Which is true. But I mean, it's just unfortunate. I just thought it was something to highlight. But I also want to quickly mention, before we go in for the news, the report, which I found very, very heartbreaking, of the reported killing of the MI of Gober in Sokoto State. He was reportedly kidnapped about 3 weeks ago. I remember that a video went viral a couple of days ago where he, of course, was pleading with the Nigerian government and the Sokoto State government to please come to his aid. He had been given a couple of days to reportedly raise 60 million naira for his release. It was a very sad video. I think he was bound. His hands were tied, I believe, in that video. He looked very, very beaten. And his clothes seemed to have been torn or had blood on them. But the point is, this is a traditional ruler in Sokoto State. And it doesn't matter what state he is from, but it's a traditional ruler. And if a person of that status in Nigeria can be treated that way and eventually lost his life, reportedly, then it really tells you where Nigeria is. And if that kind of thing can happen, and we just moved on this morning like just another day, of course, the country is not going to stop or, pause because of the loss of one person, but it tells you where Nigeria is, really. And it's a really, really heartbreaking story. His life is not more important than any other Nigerian life that is currently in captivity. Remember, I highlighted it yesterday, that there's 20 Nigerian students who, reportedly were kidnapped and are still being held by their captors. But while we're having these discussions, like Olive has just mentioned, Melekiari is somewhere else on holidaying. And of course, the
religious holiday.
The Nigerian president is in France on his work stay. So again, it tells you where Nigeria is and the response, the body language of those people who are meant to be in leadership positions in Nigeria. The National Assembly itself, and the people who are meant to be representatives of the Nigerian people, the House of Reps, the Senate. It tells you where they are with regards to these things.
And also it's important when we have conversations like this, we don't just gloss over them without mentioning their names. It's important that we recognize and acknowledge the life of Issa Bawa, the emir of Gober in Gawata town of Sokoto State, who was reportedly killed. I think one of the most heartbreaking things in the video was where he said that he's 74 years old and has served this government for 40 years. Yes. That's not a way for our senior citizens to be treated. It's not a way for anybody to imagine that their life will end after having lived and served. Again, like my colleague said, it's not saying that his life is more important than any other life, but to highlight the fact that insecurity is a problem that knows no gender, knows no religion, knows no social class. And at the end of the day, if the government doesn't fix it, it will touch everybody. Nobody was really, really immune to it. But that's a sad one. We hope that, again, the government pays attention to the challenges. And the medical students, what is happening? Do we have any updates regarding the 20 medical students that were kidnapped? Do we have any updates regarding them? What is the government doing? Are we going to get minute by minute? Okay, we are not going to get minute by minute update. But are we going to get some form of update about that?
So if you're in the conversation we had with Benjamin Hundain, one of the things that I was hoping that I would highlight really was standards of policing. He had his views, and I'm hoping that I can also remind him that he made a promise that day about the Lagos PD account, and we haven't heard anything. But aside that, he had his views, and one of the things I was trying to highlight is standard of policing and how people should be held to account, even in the police force. So, and this is what I'm saying. If God forbid, as we say in Nigeria, any life is lost with these 20 medical students, will anybody be asked or be made to account for failure of responsibility within the Nigerian security agencies generally for saving or protecting that life, for not taking action? That's the thing that I personally would always point to, that if you had done A, B, C, D, would this life have been saved? That includes those children that were kidnapped in Abuja, if you remember, that one of them was killed. So, and when that life was not saved, whose responsibility should it be? Who should be held responsible for that failure?
At this point, I mean, we don't really have answers to these questions. I don't know that we know if anybody will ever give that. But anyway, we'll get into more of these conversations later. Let's share with you what our top stories are on Breakfast Central. NNPCL gets federal government approval to spend 2023 dividend on subsidy. And away from that, we'll be looking at appeal court ordering Yahaya Bello to present himself for trial. The White Lion doesn't seem to have obeyed just yet. Nigerians to pay more for passports. As federal government hikes fee, the decision was announced at 10 p.m. yesterday night. Experts tasked federal government to address policy deficits. And we'll be reviewing the newspaper front pages with our analysts and with you, opening the phone lines as well. All these on Breakfast Central.
We begin breakfast headlines in Nigeria, where the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has said that he has no plans to leave the People's Democratic Party despite the ongoing internal crisis, adding that he will stay and fight. The immediate past River State governor stated this during a media parley on Wednesday to mark his first anniversary as FCT minister, responding to questions about the possibility of his exit from the party in light of the ongoing crisis in both the Rivers PDP and at the national level. Wike said he would not run from the fight or the vampires in the party. And the opposition, People's Democratic Party, has thrown its weight behind the call for former President Goodluck Jonathan to join the presidential race for 2027. 4 days ago, Bauchi State Governor Senator Bala Mohammed also lent his voice to the agitation, vowing to jettison his presidential ambition if Jonathan agrees to contest. Reacting in an interview, the Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Ibrahim Abdullahi, said the positions of the Bauchi governor and northern elites resonated with the opposition party. Now to education matters, the president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Emmanuel Oshudeke, says the union is displeased with the slow pace of intervention by the education minister in resolving contending issues, including proliferation of universities, integrated personnel and payroll system, IPPIS, alleged poor funding, victimization of staff, and non-release of old salaries, among others. And this, of course, you know, is as the threats of, or rather the expectations of an ASUU strike are building. Now, let's move to security matters, where President Bola Tinubu has lauded Nigeria's Inspector General of Police over his efforts at combating insecurity in the country. President Tinubu, who gave the remark alongside other dignitaries at a book launch to honor the achievements of the IGP, says that the book is a testament to his leadership quality and will serve as a valuable resource for future generations. Also in the news, President Bola Tinubu has mourned the victims of the devastating flood in Jigawa State, assuring the state government of his administration's support. Over 16 people were killed and more than 3,000 displaced in flood disasters in 14 local government areas of the state. The president, in a statement on Wednesday by his spokesman, Ajuri Ngelale, condoled with the state government over the issue that also displaced many residents of the state. Away from Nigeria, in South Africa, the Home Affairs Department says it paid a house visit to the Mozambican-born mother of Chidinma Adesina and has now issued her with a legal letter to explain her case of face having her identity registration cancelled. The Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation has also been roped in to investigate possible fraudulent activity over former Miss South Africa contestant Chidinma Adesina's citizenship status. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Let's move back now to Breakfast Central, where we get into our top stories. I am Osaogi Ogbonwa.
Economic experts in Nigeria have called on government to promptly address policy deficits that are hindering economic growth, warning that the country is sliding into a state of economic free fall. This was during the National Economic Dialogue, which was expected to the pace for the upcoming Nigeria Economic Summit in October. News Central's Joshua Imarayi reports.
The National Economic Dialogue in Abuja is being convened by economic experts to reflect on Nigeria's 25 years of uninterrupted democracy and the way forward. The event fostered robust conversation on Nigeria's democratic progress and economic prospect. Stakeholders urged broad-based collaboration, calling on Nigerians to join forces with government to unlock the country's economic potential, which they say remain unrealized despite past efforts.
This dialogue at this time in our nation's history provides us with an opportunity to collectively proffer answers to critical questions that will determine the survival of our national union and define the conditions of that union.
Let us invite our countrymen and women and supporters, development partners, friends of Nigeria, such that we can mobilize resources that will fund our dreams.
Panelists at the event shed light on the grey areas in the country's economy, emphasizing the priority needs of government that requires urgent attention.
When you look at where we were in 1980, where we showed so much promise, and where we are today, you can say, do we really have hope?
The crisis is not that we're not growing. The crisis is that we have not yet taken firm control of a critical parameter, which is the population growth rate. I think the reason why we have protests and all of this conversation is that the people got left behind. We're trying to solve for problems of the future, whereas for many of them, they need to solve for problems of today.
One of the key challenges that we need to address in order to be able to move forward is this big elephant in the room about the nature of our politics and how it affects economics. But it's not just in terms of the big numbers that we see. It is that, growth must also correlate to development. And that means, what do people on the ground see and feel?
When you have a governor or a head of state deciding who is chairman of party, who is chief justice, who is president of Senate, you have taken away all the checks that the system has created to make sure that that person does not become autocratic.
With the Nigerian Economic Summit scheduled for October, stakeholders are looking up to the National Economic Dialogue to set the pace for robust conversation on the nation's economic future. In Abuja, reporting for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Thanks to Joshua Imarayi for that report. Now, as Nigerians continue to struggle with the persistent fuel scarcity and stringent economic situation, the federal government, without prior announcement or notice, has approved an upward review of the fees for the Nigerian passport, effective from the 1st of September 2024. This disclosure was made on X in a statement issued on Wednesday by the spokesman for the Nigerian Immigration Service, Kenneth Udo, of the NIS. The reason given for the upward review by the NIS is that it aims to ensure the quality and integrity of the Nigerian passport, Udo said.
Here's what we know about the recent hike in fees. The new fees, which take effect from September 1st, 2024, are part of efforts to maintain the quality and integrity of the Nigerian standard passport. With this review, a 32-page passport booklet with 5-year validity, currently charged at 35,000 naira, will become 50,000 naira, while a 64-page passport booklet with 10-year validity, which is currently 70,000 naira, will become 100,000 naira. The statement, however, indicates that the fees remain unchanged abroad. I think one of the things that we did see was how interesting it is for this to be happening and the announcement to be made at 10 p.m. at night. It seems that when the government wants to make very uncomfortable announcements, they make it at night. Whilst we're not saying that, so first of all, saying that they are increasing the price of the passport because of the integrity of the passport might not have been the best reason. Because are they alluding to the fact that what we have right now is currently subpar or substandard? Is that what the Nigerian immigration is saying? A better reason would have been because of the recent increase in the cost of living. Let's say for whatever reason they're importing the booklets and they can say, oh, because of FX, we're importing these booklets, but really, integrity is one. I don't know if that was a good enough excuse. Secondly, whilst we can agree and understand that things have become very expensive and different agencies and parastatals are trying to meet up and trying to keep business afloat, now might not be the best time to have increased or effected this increase, because it would seem that at every point, Nigerians are being charged for one thing or the other. We're battling with fuel prices, we're battling with increased cost of living, people are still trying to get food, and now it does seem like passport is being increased. Interestingly, the notice is also a 10-day notice, which is such a short time to be able to implement this. So even if you try to say you want to pay now, which I tried to do, I went on the immigration website, the website didn't seem to be functioning as well as it should, maybe because of the large numbers of people or for whatever technical reason, because I tried the fast track. This was what I saw, 404 page not found. And then the next one, I tried to do the regular one, put in my passport details, and this is the answer I kept getting over and over again. So it's not really the most exciting time for Nigerians right now. There are lots of people groaning on X, and we'll take that much later. We'll take reactions of people on X much later.
Yeah. I mean, the government, of course, is within its rights to make increments, every now and then. It just needs to be justifiable to the people. I don't necessarily agree with the idea that once, there is an adjustment in price anywhere, we should all start, crying and wailing about it. I don't agree with that. If there's a justifiable reason why there's an increase, then we'll listen to it, but the problem here is proper communication. And I've repeatedly said that if you have a proper communication pathway with the Nigerian people, you're able to convince them enough that this is the reason we're making these increments, nobody will have any issue with it. But, simply saying that they're doing it because of, they're trying to improve on the integrity of the passport doesn't really sound good enough, What exactly do you mean? And how does paying an extra 15,000 or 20,000 naira improve on the integrity of the passport, I mean, from 35 to about 50,000
for
naira,
the
exactly.
One,
so
and then the other one for 130,000.
70 to 100,000.
Yes.
So the point, my question is, how does that extra 15,000 improve on the quality of the passport? What's going to be the difference between the old passport and the new passport? Is there going to be is there going to be a difference in the passport first of all? If there is going to be, what is the difference? Are there new security details that are being put on the passport, or just those are the things that we need to be clear on. Simply saying we're improving on integrity is not good enough. I remember also that a couple of years ago there was some controversy about where our passports are even made, and there was some revelation that they're not locally made
booklets
here.
being imported.
Exactly. So these are some of the things that we should be talking about. With the Nigerian Immigration Service. Do we have full confirmation now that our booklets are being made here? The full, entirety of the passport is being locally produced. If not, why are we still outsourcing the production of Nigerian passport to a company outside Nigeria? Some clarity would be interesting, and if we had person from the Nigerian Immigration Service join us, then yes, we would like to ask these questions to justify that 15,000. Even a 5 naira increment needs to be justified.
So I don't disagree that the government is well within its right to make increments. However, what I'm saying is, we all remember how the Minister of Interior, Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, was applauded for the role in which he played to ensure the facilitation. Many people accredited that to him, the ease of passport processing, cutting out the extra cost that people had to pay over time. But what we're saying is, whilst you are well within your rights to increase, is the timing a timing that works for Nigerians, especially because this is arguably one of the toughest times Nigerians have had to deal with. This year it's been like back to back. We're dealing with electricity increment, we're dealing with pump price of petrol increment. People are buying fuel as high as 1,200 to 1,500. For private organizations, they are still trying to make ends meet, and especially because this is a government parastatal, and especially because this is a government that says that 70,000 naira minimum wage is too much. Whilst I'm saying that increment is not out of place, however, now might not be the right time for this increment to happen. Now might not be the right time because Nigerians are still trying to make ends meet. Passports sounds like getting a passport is an important part, but now it's actually a luxury for one to actually get a passport.
The number of Nigerians, that have international passports, will probably shock you. if we have those statistics, from the Nigerian Immigration Service, will probably shock you that it's maybe not, that many people that even have, that level of luxury, but still, that is not, an important part of the conversation. One thing that I should also mention is that we got to a stage with the Buhari administration where it felt like to impress the Nigerian people and to impress the Buhari administration, we started seeing MDAs declaring profit. And we're talking about agencies that have no business being profit-making. We're talking about JAMB. If you remember, now it made headlines back then when JAMB was saying, they're declaring, this is the amount of money that they made this year.
I think in the defense of JAMB, it was because, in a way, it revealed. You remember when they were saying money was being
a lot of money was being stolen.
It revealed that there was a lot of corruption in that system.
I agree with that. But the point is, that then became the norm. And that's why you then start to see that customs would then be declaring that this is the amount of money made in 2023, 2024, that they make the highest. You're not making the highest because you've improved your services. So you're not making the highest because you've been able to attract more people into the country or more goods into the country. You're making your highest because you've increased the level of taxation that the average businessman or average importer is having to pay. Nigerian Immigration Service is going to eventually declare their own profit at the end of the year and say, we made the highest we've ever made. But it's not because you improved on your services or you're able to, improve on whatever it is that you're offering Nigerians. What you've done is increase the charge that Nigerians have to pay. And that, for me, is where I find a problem. If we don't have this over-dependency on declaring how much money random agencies are making, because eventually, it's still going to pull up to the federation account, and then we'll see what that money is eventually used for. But the point is, if we don't have that extreme dependency to show walking, from these agencies, then we probably wouldn't have a lot of these different increments every couple of weeks or every couple of days.
I'm going to slightly disagree with what you said, and the area I'm going to slightly disagree with is in particular to the Nigerian Immigration Service. And I think that a number of Nigerians will agree that whilst our service is not yet top-notch, we've seen an improvement from what was existing before. Back in the day, getting a passport was a more arduous task. Right now, a lot of it has been digitalized. Yes, I did try today, and it failed, but I'm not going to downplay the role that I agree with that so far.
I agree with that, and the statement that I made wasn't necessarily in particular about, the Immigration Service.
Why I highlighted that is because they are the ones who
I agree.
They are the reason why we started this
Jojo and
conversation.
the Ministry of Interior, has made some improvement, and of course, I've definitely experienced, the improvement in that process. So it's not belittling that. I'm making a broad statement generally.
Right.
That what we find is that we don't necessarily see a broad improvement in the services being rendered to Nigerians. What we instead see is an increment in the cost that the Nigerians have to bear. And then at the end of the year, they tell you that they've made the highest.
What I'm saying is increment is not such a terrible thing. But when all the increments are happening at the same time to Nigerians, then that's not a good thing, especially because all these increments are coming from government parastatals. The government that is supposed to look for how to make life easier and bearable for Nigerians should not be in the government that is, taking the breath out of Nigerians. If we do a bit of comparison, let's bring a bit of stats. According to a 2020 report, only 10% of Nigerians owned a valid passport. But
you see what talking about.
You said. But now let's look at the UK. On the April 24th, the price of a UK passport rose. For the second time in just over 14 months, the cost of applying online to get a new or renewed adult passport went up from £82.50 to £88.50 from midnight. A similar strategy that Nigeria is emulating, announcing the change in fees late at night. Ghana also hiked their passport fee by 400% in April 2024. According to a foreign ministry brief, Ghana is the cheapest in West Africa. The next cheapest is Liberia at $40. So maybe we're not doing so badly. Anyway.
it's not an astronomical increase, right?
See, that increase, no, we're saying this from, in a way, and I get that, maybe a bit of a privileged perspective, and also because truly the people that have this passport, a number of them are privileged, right? But why I still think that it might not, mine is, I don't think it's a good time 10 days notice. They're saying that the increment is effective from the 1st of September. Now is not a good time. Nigerians do not want to hear of any further increase. Our government, in a way, is communicating that they are disconnected from the reality of the average Nigerian. When you're talking about increase in electricity tariff, you're talking about the increase in price of fuel. And what that increase does is also increase in the cost of living, increase in transportation, increase in feeding. They said that inflation was lower in July, but if the gains from that inflation being reduced has all been lost with the fuel scarcity that Nigeria is currently experiencing. So what Nigerians do not want to hear at this point is another increase, because it just feels like they're looking for every opportunity to squeeze out some more money to be able to make ends meet. Yeah. In fact, there's some sort of perspective that Nigerians have shared that a number of these people may have been given targets and are now trying all that they can to increase their
that's exactly what I was alluding to.
You know?
That's exactly what I was alluding to. That it feels like agencies that aren't necessarily set up to be revenue generating, focused agencies now seem to be moving in that direction because they're trying to impress.
But Nigerians should not be the one. At what cost? We are saying here we're here for internally generated revenue being increased, but at what cost? At the detriment of the basic survival of the average Nigerian.
The good thing is that you don't necessarily get a passport every week. You get one for 5 years, you use it for 5 years.
I regret not having done 10 years when I
If you get a 10-year passport, you use it for 10 years. That's maybe the only good thing. But again, if you're going to be increasing it by 10 naira, it must be justified. And simply saying that it improves the integrity is not a good enough justification.
Hopefully, by the time they've given us this passport, increase this rate, what it would do is it would get us more international respect. So when they see a green passport...
What about the value?
Yeah.
What about the value of the passport?
When they see you with a green passport, they don't treat you a certain type of way at the airport. A number of us have experienced, being treated as sub.
You can't pay 100,000 for a 10-year passport and still get disrespected, across the world.
Right. Let's go on a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at more conversations this morning.
Welcome once again. President Bola Tinubu has given the green light for the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, to utilize the 2023 final dividends due to the Federation account to offset petrol subsidy payments. Additionally, the president has suspended the payment of 2024 interim dividends to the Federation to bolster NNPC's cash flow. This is according to a report done by the cable. According to NNPC's forecast, the cumulative petrol subsidy bill is expected to hit 6.884 trillion naira by December 2024, leaving the company unable to remit 3.987 trillion naira in taxes and royalties to the Federation account.
The National Oil Company attributes the subsidy payments to the devaluation of the naira and forex pressure, which has led to a significant increase in the subsidy bill. The approval comes after NNPC's Group CEO Mele Kyari warned that the company might not be able to sustain petrol imports beyond July 2024 due to the subsidy burden. Meanwhile, at the NNPC's 2023 full-year result presentation on Monday, the Chief Financial Officer of the Nigeria Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, Alhaji Umar Ajia, disclosed that the government pays the company to sell PMS at half price of the landing cost, what he calls shortfall. Joining us is oil and gas consultant Shoumi Olabode. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
All right. Also joining us is the chief economist. Okay, he'll be joining us later. But Mr. Shoumi, let's talk about what exactly is going on. At the resumption of President Bola Tinubu's time in office, he said subsidy is gone. And for a while, Nigerians believed that subsidy was gone, talking about the gains that they had made because subsidy was gone. And now we're hearing about shortfalls, which seems like another name for subsidy. So what really is shortfalls? And is this, is this safe to say that subsidy isn't really gone?
Okay, thank you. I think there is a dynamic, a fluidity about the subsidy thing that isn't very much in the public space. The first thing is that basically a subsidy is a gap, a delta between what is the actual price of a product or a service or a commodity and what it is being made available to the market for. So basically, at the time of a resumption, when they removed all those figures, subsidy technically was gone. But petroleum products is dollar denominated at the roots. So the moment the dollar exchange to the naira fluctuated and the naira was devalued, then subsidy technically came into the play. So basically what you are having, or what was happening at that time, I mean, what was happening now is that even though the government had removed subsidy, which came with some hardship because of the increase in fuel prices and all that, the issue was that the fluctuation in naira made ensure that another figure came with the price. Because technically, if you look at what's available in the national market, it's about 930 or 940 naira for a liter of petrol. And obviously, we're not selling it at that price, at least not yet officially. So definitely there is a gap. So what basically has happened in my mind is that the government has lacked the the political will to actually announce the facts of the matter. And so this is where there's a balance of play here. Governance and even the people within the NNPC owe it to us to learn to communicate better. And then there are more issues at play, which is more than just the fact that there is a gap in the amount. We need to look at the brokerage fees. We need to look at the amount of petrol that we're actually bringing. That is where the dollars and cents really matter, because the devil is usually in the details.
Yeah, I mean, is this a communication problem in particular? Is the government just being dishonest completely with the idea of paying subsidy? Mostly because it doesn't want to go back on President Tinubu's claim that subsidy is gone. Is that where, or would you say that that's maybe where the problem is? Just being afraid to reverse that statement and accept that we are paying actual subsidy. And then also, what are your thoughts on bundling of the NNPC and clean up its books? It doesn't seem to have had a very, very, clear financial status for quite a while.
Okay, so I wouldn't call it outright dishonesty. So, and the reason is that like I said, at the time when the announcement was made, the petrol was selling at the figure that the figure with which the increment was technically removing subsidy, but it came with a lot of hardship. And the hardship had not lasted long enough for the difference to be enjoyed by the people. So the moment there was an increase, don't forget that the increment is not in naira, the increment is in dollars. So the moment there was an increase, particularly when there was a fluctuation between the naira and the dollar, there was a gap. So that's just the reality of the matter. And at the moment when the dollar exchange to the naira changed, obviously everything also changed. So it's at that time, or the circumstances leading to that time, that there was a need to also tell the people. So it's just semantics. It's just semantics, and they really don't know how to go about it. It's not about dishonesty. It's just that there are factors outside the circle of influence of government.
Amen. Okay. Anyway, I probably will bring back the question, but let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with this conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back this morning, of course, to continuing the conversation this morning on the NNPC and its decision to use funds generated to once again pay subsidy, or shortfall as they've called it. We're joined this morning by oil and gas consultant Shoumi Olabode. Ms. Olabode, welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. So I was initially asking you about having some clarity with the NNPC's financial statement. Some people would argue that it hasn't really had a very clear financial statement in quite a while that would help Nigeria understand, or Nigerians rather understand, exactly what the picture is with the funds that the NNPC generates, and how it eventually utilizes those funds.
Well, I'm not exactly a financial expert. I don't deal with figures like that, but I do remember. I mean, my first job was in KPMG, and I was in the consulting arm, not financial. It was IT consulting, and consulting. I mean, financials. That's accounting practice. They usually have all these standards and all that. I think it's incumbent upon people like ICANN and ANAN and all those financial bodies to also do a duty to Nigeria to help us analyze those statements. Because basically, those statements are produced by those consulting, the big four. If it's not Pricewaterhouse, it's KPMG, Ernst & Young. Those are the kind of people that do those things. So if there's lack of clarity in a lot of things, it's usually in the details, it's usually made by those people who are considered experts in those things. So those are the people that can really dive into the details and tell us that there are a lot of gaps that are missing. Because even in things where you have proper headings, sometimes by accounting principles and accounting laws, some of those headings may actually mean the same thing. And if you are not really in that field, you may not know. So I don't doubt you to say that the financials are not properly labeled and that they are not clear. But I'm not that person who can actually speak to the reason why they are what they are and if things are being hidden in the figures.
All right. So at this point, Nigerians are also a bit confused as to what exactly is going on regarding the petrol scarcity. NNPC has given its reason being logistics issue. At this point, who should Nigerians hold accountable? Many have asked of the Minister of Petroleum, the person of the President. Others have asked for the Group CEO of NNPC, Mele Kyari, who is currently not in the country. But who at this point should Nigerians hold responsible with things not having, been put in place that they should have to be able to guarantee the free flow of petrol and availability of product?
Well, holding somebody responsible and accountable and getting the system to work are two different things. And I keep saying this so that we can have a clear and proper perspective, as Nigerians, because what we really want to do is for the system to work, not to have somebody to blame. But we tend to, it's okay. It's a perspective to hold. It's also a miracle thinking that just one thing. So if you have somebody who is the head of a body or head of an organization, yes, the thinking and all responsibility relies on the head. But when it comes to the execution and the reality of things, the head is not the feet, the head is not the hands, the head is not the internal organs, the head is just, is the head. And for everything to work, the head and the feet and the, organs, so you look at it like a football team. The coach is ultimately responsible for all the results and the things that happen with the football team. But the coach is not the players. So there are situations where the players may choose to sabotage the instructions of the coach. It does happen. And when such things happen, what you want to look at is to look at the causative factors for these things. And where we don't know the causative factors, for us to drill down and find out why information being missing. Yes, ultimately, at the end of the day, the president will, overall responsibility. But the president is not the one looking for vendors to supply petrol. The president is not the one that is holding the supply chain that will ensure that petrol gets to the filling station. The president is not the petrol attendant, nor is he the person who is responsible. So when you look at the supply chain, that is what we know today of the downstream finished product. There are gaps in the process. They can't just tell us thunderstorm. Yes, they can say that, but they just can't say that because there's supposed to be redundancies in the process. There are supposed to be other things that should happen. And where that information is missing, it's incumbent upon the NNPC group to for us to put pressure on the NNPC group, or NNPCCL, to let us know why those things are. So when they say there's a thunderstorm somewhere, why is it that other times when there's been thunderstorms in the history of Nigeria, there has not been scarcity? Why is it that the same thunderstorms that happened did not affect other countries? There are questions that need to be asked. So my point in all of this is that, yes, we can hold the president responsible, we can hold NNPC responsible, but it's more than just holding somebody responsible. It's the fact that there isn't enough information and there isn't enough details into what exactly is happening for us to be able to say these are the causative factors and for us to be able to address the things that need correction within the supply chain that will ensure that we are not held hostage by forces who may want to take advantage of the uncertainties in the environment so that they can further their own interests.
I mean, but it's meant to be some person's or a group of persons' responsibility to ask those questions, and if we've repeatedly had these situations happen, every couple of months, and we still don't have proper answers to those questions, so we still have to go back and blame the Minister of Petroleum for that failure. The players that you mentioned, if they are the ones that are responsible, there's meant to be a person whose group responsibility would be to ensure that those players do not continue to jeopardize the system, don't you think?
Like I said, we can blame, but are we looking for somebody to blame or are we trying to solve the situation? So that's where perspective comes in. So it's like there are people that when they get into a crisis, into a problem, they just want friends to be around them and sympathize with them and blame somebody and, just talk about the problem. But there are those who want a solution. And so they will address the difficult questions that those who want sympathies around them will not address. What I'm basically saying is that we can blame anybody. I mean, it's neither here nor there. We can even blame the whole system. We can blame God. We can blame. There's no problem. We can blame. But is that what we want?
Yeah, but it's not the role of the... So this is my point. It's not the role of the average Nigerian and, the role that he should play, aside, being a good citizen, is to, at least play some level of opposition, which includes blaming, or at least trying to understand it.
Maybe not
the
blame,
role
I
of the
think it's
person,
more of holding accountable.
whichever term that we want to
Right.
use. But the person whose responsibility would be to fix are the people who are elected into office. So if you say we can't blame, we can prefer, it's not the average Nigerian's role to fix that thing, to prefer solutions and figure out how these problems can be solved. There's people who have been elected to, or at least appointed to play that role. Nigerians can only blame or can only do the best that they can to hold one person or the other to account. Oh, we seem to have lost the connection there with.
Right. Or maybe it's also time to start to revisit the conversation about whether or not the logic behind having the president to be the Minister of Petroleum is a logic that still holds water or one that is still valid in 2024.
I've always argued against it.
Yes, it's predated this administration, it's predated the previous administration, and was allegedly, or was put there, or was set up in that way to seemingly block the leakages in the petroleum sector. But how efficient has that been? When insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So the president has a lot on his table. The president has a lot to handle. Maybe it's time to actually now get a separate Minister of Petroleum that can be held accountable when things go wrong in the petroleum sector.
Anyway.
And there are other junior ministers. Anyway, that's another conversation. But we will still be talking about this. Let's share with you a recap of the conversations that we've looked at this morning, and then we'll share with you what's coming up next. NNPCL gets federal government approval to spend 2023 dividend on subsidy. And away from that, we've looked at Nigerians to pay more for passports as federal government hikes. We also looked at that conversation and what the reactions have been. We'll take more of that in the next hour as well. Experts tax federal government to address policy deficits. But let's share with you what's coming up next.
Appeal Court orders Yahaya Bello to present himself for trial. And the newspaper front pages also, we share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria today. And also share with you what Nigerians are saying.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Thank you for joining us. Remember that you can engage with us on social media at News Central TV, but you can also engage with us by being a part of this segment, our newspaper reviews. Today you are analyst, and we're going to be looking at the front pages of the newspapers to see what the big stories are. Remember that you can call to talk about any of the stories that catch your eye, but also to remember to turn down the volume of your TV set before you call in. Let's head to our first paper this morning. On the front page of our first paper, which is the Daily Independent, Nigerians' future mortgaged by Tinubu family and associates, says Atiku. PDP crisis, Wike vows to remain in party and fight to the last, declares park and pay scheme illegal in FCT. Tinubu okays takeover of Dalhatu Araf Specialist Hospital by federal government. Constitutional review, NBA calls for inclusion of magistrates as judicial officers. Despite court order, APC sacks Benue ESCOs, raises 7-man CTC, prices of Gary, tomatoes, others drop in Anambra, Ebonyi, Enugu. Rivers local government elections won't hold, embattled Okocha boasts. UNICEF decries diversion of supplements meant for children in Sokoto. Tinubu's renewed hope agenda boosting Nigeria's economy, according to Bagudu. Attempt to pull me down may destroy PDP, Damagom warns. Businesses expect naira to depreciate further in Q3, according to a CBN survey. That's all on the front page of the Daily Independent. Let's move over to our next paper.
The Vanguard newspaper is coming up next. It says here, petrol scarcity worsens as marketers load at 780 naira per litre. Transport fares raised by over 200%. Transporters lament impact on businesses. Nigeria becoming a failed state, says Pengasan. And also this morning on the Vanguard, NBAD governor and CSOs berate federal government over prolonged detention of protesters without charges. Federal government increases international passport fees. Police invitation to Ajero. More critical unions give strike notices. Interesting. As US-based union petitions Nigerian embassy. Food inflation reducing will reduce it further, says Finance Minister. Federal government finally criminalizes vandalism of telecom facilities in New Gazette. I think that's a good thing. And also Nigeria made Dangote a colossus. It must now handle him wisely. Only fashion, that's, I think, an article on the Vanguard newspapers this morning. These are the major stories that we can find on the Vanguard. Let's see what else exists on the Daily Times this morning.
On the front page of the Daily Times, Tinubu family has mortgaged future of Nigerians, says Atiku. He says Nigeria rapidly transforming into a government of Tinubu, by Tinubu, and for Tinubu. Again, Chinese firm seizes set to sell Nigeria's UK properties over $70 million award. Promises transparency in sale of the properties due to keen public interest of Nigerians. No place for non-computer literates in civil service, according to Wilson Jack. Pengasan vows to end scourge of crude oil theft. Nigeria needs new mapping to address insecurity surveyors. Federal government hikes international passport fees. Alleged terrorism financing. Don't silence NLC, CISLAC tells police. That's all on the front page of the newspapers. We'll go on a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll be taking your phone calls in reaction to any of the stories that we've talked about this morning on the front pages. Stay with us. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Once again, it's time for us to review the newspaper front pages. If you'd like to react to any of the stories, the numbers to call are on your TV screen. Please remember to turn down the volume of your TV set or your laptop, whatever device you're watching us from, before you call in. Also, you can engage with us on social media at News Central TV. We'll begin this morning with the Daily Independent newspaper. The big story there says, Nigerians' future mortgaged by Tinubu family and associates. And this is a statement made by the former number 2 person in the country, former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. There's so many conversations that have, that have come out as a result of this. And I think the NNPC is in the spotlight this time around with, what's going on. What's going on has unearthed a lot of conversations. There's a conversation about the NNPC and OVH and the involvement of Wale Tinubu in the ownership of OVH. So Wale Tinubu is allegedly owns 49% of OVH. And, NNPC purchased OVH sometime in October 2022. And the Daily Times had also, Daily Independent, I believe, had asked for basically asked for information to know how much they purchased it for. they were not given access to this information because they claimed it was a private entity, even though the NNPC is not privately owned. But months later or years later, what we're seeing now is that the OVH has now purchased the NNPC Retail Limited, so it no longer exists. So the conversation is, I mean, all these allegations are that, in a way, this is some sort of scheme to ensure that members of his family own different parts of shares in some very major stakeholders in the country, or stakeholders of businesses in the country, businesses that should be government-owned and now in some measure privately owned. Because the question was, first of all, why were they purchasing OVH? You know, they had about over 500, NNPC had over 500 filling stations at the time. OVH had just about 94 filling stations and maybe 100 that were leased out. So it's like, why were you purchasing it? How much did you purchase it for? And later, even the controversy surrounding Mele Kyari being, you know, appointed the group CEO of NNPC Limited. So all of that controversy has come to the light. And Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, through his media aid, are saying that they regret the intention to sort of privatize NNPC because they find that it has in a way caused a chokehold and it is now manipulated. According to him, in fact, I should probably quote what he says, that when President Bola Tinubu is out of office, it will be difficult to undo the damage that has been done. I would like to use the exact words that he said. He regretted that his intention to privatize the NNPC and increase its transparency has been overshadowed by what he describes as the criminal hijack of the NNPC by corporate cabals around the current president. So it's just like part of the allegations surrounding Alpha Beta and some of all these organizations. Yeah. And I do think that these are worth looking into. It is worth being investigated, and, you know, some answers need to be had regarding this. But yeah, that is what Alhaji Atiku Abubakar thinks. We have Lenin calling from Abuja. Good morning, Lenin. Thank you very much for calling.
Good morning, President. Good morning, guys.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
I want to talk about this joke of a country we have. I always talk about it. So,
go ahead.
29th of May last year, Tinubu said subsidy is gone. I remember a few months later, people were saying that they received subsidy. This government denied it. Then, days ago, they came up with another name. I don't know what that means. I don't really know what that means. So, why are they lying to us? Why are they taking us for a joke? So, if they are paying subsidy, why is fuel still high? Since they've come out to only that they are paying subsidy, please, can they be bold enough to stop loading this naira so that everything will be okay? Because they are just joking with us in this country. Why? Sometimes when I wake up like this, it makes me angry. Like, it affects my mental health. Like, you don't just. It's okay. Let me just turn it from here, please, before it will affect my day. Thank you.
Yeah, Lenin, don't let Nigeria
affect you. It's easier said than done. Saying don't let Nigeria affect your mental health.
You know, and hey, listen, at every corner, you know, across Nigeria, today, tomorrow, you know, anytime, you would find thousands of people who feel the exact same way, who, just dealing with the current reality of Nigeria, feel the exact same way that the country will affect them mentally, that they need to also maybe have a different approach towards dealing with Nigeria's issues. Those who, of course, have had their transportation prices increased, you know, by 200, 300, maybe 500%. Those who have had their feeding prices increased by 300, 500% because of the inflation. Those, of course, who are continuing to read the stories in the news every morning and realizing that we don't seem to be moving in the right direction. You know, there doesn't seem to be any actual pathway to greatness, you know, with the current administration. There's so many people who are dealing with, you know, that reality. And so Lenin is not every single person. And I'm talking about people are, you know, across different earnings brackets. Everyone is dealing with the same reality. So that mental health thing that he just mentioned, it is a factual thing that happens to everybody.
Absolutely. Let's hear from Oguche calling from Abuja. Good morning. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Just like the last caller said, it's so unfortunate and so painful that we find ourselves in this condition. As I'm speaking to you right now, I traveled over the weekend for a program in my state, Kogi State precisely. Almost all the filling stations sells above 800 naira, 900 naira per liter. On my way back, I tried to manage the fuel I have. When I got close to Abaji, the cheapest I could get was 880 naira per liter. Now, when you get to Abuja, apart from the city center, where you buy fuel at 700 naira, 705 naira on the airport road, then probably the NNPC sells at the official price of 615 naira or so. The point is this: we wake up every day with these issues of not knowing what the actual price of fuel is in Nigeria. The queues have remained constantly there for us, and every day we pass through this unnecessary headache. And I just want to appeal to the federal government: let them do something to ameliorate this suffering that just are going through every day. We see people now can no longer drive their car. The conversion kits of the strangers talking about, we don't even know where they are. The cheapest now you can get around this environment is about 900 to 1 million naira to convert your car.
All right.
And this is getting too much on us, biting too much. Please, we need the assistance from the federal government and even the state government.
All right. Thank you very much for calling. I mean, I think it's the same sentiments that is shared across the board. There's a great level of displeasure, discontent that Nigerians feel because life is not really easy. I mean, life was not always easy, but it feels like things are more complicated. I'd like to take another story that further highlights the complicatedness of the life that we're currently living in Nigeria. Still on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper, I saw a headline there that says, supplements meant for malnourished children being diverted and sold in Sokoto, according to UNICEF. That's another story that we'll take shortly. But let's hear Uche calling from Abia State. Good morning, Uche. Please go ahead with your call. Thanks for calling.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
If Nigerian problem is affecting everybody, like the last two callers, another election is coming. We should do what? Do away with ethnicity, religion. Hunger does not know. This is a lesson to Nigerians. Hunger does not know ethnicity, religion, which means next election, any candidate that does not come forward, debate, we should not vote the person. God bless you people.
Thank you very much, Uche, for calling. I'm still looking at the front page of the Daily Independent, that story that says UNICEF's United Nations supplements meant for malnourished children being diverted and sold in Sokoto, according to UNICEF. UNICEF has looked at certain indices, certain key indicators such as antenatal care, immunization, mortality rates, and all of these have portrayed very poor performance. The UNICEF's Chief of Field Office in charge of Sokoto, Kebbi, and Zamfara States, Michael Juma, has expressed concerns during the quarterly policymakers on Wednesday in Sokoto. And part of what they had said is that they have seen people openly selling these supplements that are supposed to be given to these children. So they've turned it into some form of business, that have, and unfortunately, the children are a representative of the society. They're a microcosm of the society. When the adults are suffering from like an intense poverty, they're struggling to make ends meet. Of course, it would extend to the children, but unfortunately, what we're now seeing is that they are going as low as selling their supplements in the open market. Supplements these children are meant to even get for free.
Who's going to be punished or fired or
Nobody.
arrested? Anyway, Uche, good morning.
Ben, good morning.
I beg your pardon. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Please go ahead.
I'd like to appreciate what I listen to every morning. You guys are hearing the real point that we want to hear.
Thank you very much.
But first and foremost, I'll tell you what, until Nigeria creates a democratic system that suits Nigeria, we are going nowhere. We are wasting time. Until we create a democratic system that suits us, not the Western-style democratic system, it's never going to work. We are wasting our time. You people, the press, the media, need to advocate for a Nigerian democratic system that suits all of us. This is not suiting all of us. That is the reason why we're having all these problems. That's why we're having all these problems. We don't have a democratic system that suits Nigeria. That's what I want to tell you. I want you guys every month you are meeting the right target. Please let us create a democratic system that suits Nigeria. This is a great country.
Okay.
It's a great country, but people don't do it.
All right.
Thank you very much, Ben.
Ben, I want to, also just chip in something. I think it was Uche or so, the previous caller that mentioned it. Where he said, that, in 2027, the certain demands that Nigerians should have, or debate, and, for that really just tells you that people have already moved on from whatever happened in 2023. They're already talking about 2027. And that also tells you that Nigerians have accepted that there's almost nothing you can do to change the status quo of, your reality once elections are done and dusted. If the courts don't help you, during the election tribunals, that's it. Wait for the next 4 years. And that's the reason that I mentioned earlier that it is important that everybody understands, both the electorate and those who are going to be elected, the value of time for the average Nigerian. That very many people don't have 4 years to give to anybody to waste. Very many Nigerians, in fact, the whole 200 million Nigerians don't have 4 years to give to any politician to go into government house, either on the state level, local government level, or even in ASUU, to waste for 4 years while we're achieving absolutely nothing. Very many people don't have it. Because that's the mentality of the average Nigerian, that once you get it wrong with one election cycle, you wait for the next 4 years. And so that's why Nigerians get panicky. When 6 months or 5 or 6 or 8 months into, an administration, they can already see that this administration doesn't seem to know what it's doing. Nigerians start to panic because they know that the next time that they would have an opportunity is 4 years after. The value of time can never be stated with regards to Nigeria's conversations, that we're not giving you 4 or 8 years of our lives to just play around with. Because that's exactly what you're doing. If you're not working tirelessly to improve on the life of the average Nigerian, then you are playing with 8 years of our lives.
Right.
8 of our lives that the country would have grown to some level, or at least achieved some growth. What you're doing is playing with it. 8 years that an average Nigerian would never, ever, ever get back.
All right.
Anyway.
We have Gregory calling from Lagos. Good morning, Gregory. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning to you in the studio, and good morning to listeners.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
It's a very sad situation. A friend was sharing this morning on how he bought fuel for 1,000 per liter at ASUU yesterday.
How much? How much did you say?
1,000 naira per liter. After much man-hour spent on queue.
And just to double check, is it buying it from a petrol station or from the black market?
Buying from a filling station. He sent a picture when he was on queue, a very long queue. He bought for 1,000 per liter. It's actually a sad situation because we have been told to wait till the next election. With what happened last time during the election, there's no hope that these people will allow the election to ever be free and fair. And they have their collaborators in the judiciary. They will still rig the election. And when you go to court, the judiciary would uphold the election. If you have the same man who oversees the electoral process, I make chairman is there. You have the same politicians that ones who are going to speak for the same office. How do we hope there will be a change in this nation? They will still mix up our destiny as long as they want. And when they leave, they installed their foot soldiers to continue from where they stopped.
Right.
But Buhari, Tinubu was continued the work of Buhari, and we are seeing what they are doing. This is how we are going to continue in this country. I want to advise Nigeria. You have to jettison this acting and religious sentiment. Let us come together and take our destiny in our own hands. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for calling. I mean, buying fuel at 1,000 per liter. So if it takes
10 liters gives you 10,000 naira.
10,000 naira for 10 liters is ridiculous.
25 liters, 25,000 naira.
My goodness. For that 25 liters keg.
Yes, exactly, that one.
God.
If you have a 80-liter fuel tank in your car, it means you're a big man.
That's 80,000 naira.
That's 80,000
So if I
naira.
want to buy 2 kegs, I'll pay 50,000 for that. and then if I needed, say, 40 liters.
Yeah, but if we're being honest, right? What is the expected landing cost of petrol? You know, if we're currently running the same system without
So
the
what they're
Dangote
saying
refinery,
right now,
or without any local
but we need
refineries.
to know, are they saying, that's the thing, we don't know what the landing cost is, and we don't know, so we're not able to gauge this shortfall.
I mean, it's about 1,000, maybe slightly more than 1,000. That's.
So if people are already buying at the landing cost, are we buying right now at the landing cost? Or if this reality, what we're experiencing, is this still the shortfall? Is this still the subsidized version we're paying for?
So when we're paying 600 or 700, right, that was obviously a subsidized version. Because the expected, landing cost, is about 1,000, maybe slightly more than 1,000 naira per liter. So definitely somebody was paying off that balance. The federal government or the NNPC or both, somehow, some way, that there was still subsidy. What Nigerians were complaining about mostly is if you claim that subsidy is gone and we find out that we're still paying subsidy, then why are we paying for 600 naira? It is mostly because if they completely remove their hands and see no subsidy whatsoever, you're going to be paying, about 1,000 naira. So what then should be the answer to ensure that Nigerians, find affordable petrol? It cannot be increase minimum wage to 70,000 naira, because that absolutely does nothing. Will, fixing our local refineries reduce the price of petrol regardless? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it will definitely bring some relief, no doubt. But it is these, different levels of uncertainty that confuse the average Nigerian. Sly, good morning from Ebonyi. Good morning, Sylvester.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, welcome. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I really cherish what you people are doing. It's good. But there's one thing we need to know about this country. The issue has gotten to a level that if you can have a highest bidder, then make your way. If you don't have a highest bidder, you go down. The masses, the Nigerians, equally contribute to this. Because some of the youth, let me say, 65% of the youth are doing nothing. And they rely on these high bidder politicians to survive. They use them as a willing tools. And judiciary is equally another thing that this country can easily collapse without the effort of judiciary. Because they say the last hope of a common man is judiciary. But now, the last hope of the common man is prison. So, talking of the fuel, they know what they are doing. The market has nothing to do. They have suppressed the youth that are trying to protest. But I believe in all distance time,
all right,
when the rain starts falling, it will beat both the one that carrying the donkey and the donkey itself. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for calling. All right. We will go on a break now. Thank you so much to all our callers for calling in and being a part of the conversation. There's so much more conversations that we need to explore, and one thing we can all agree with is the fact that Nigerians are not very pleased with what is currently going on. Nigerians are not content. I don't know if content is the word, but Nigerians are dissatisfied with how the country is being run. And I'm hoping that the federal government, the presidency, everyone is taking note and that something is being done soon. The fuel scarcity situation is just really feels like the final straw, the straw that is breaking the camel's back. We'll go on a break, and when we come back, we'll be having more conversations this morning. The White Lion may have run out of options to evade the law. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has directed former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello to present himself for arraignment, halting his attempts to evade trial. Justice Ken Amadi has upheld the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission's EFCC appeal against the lower court's decision that shielded Bello from criminal trial. The court found the lower court's judgment scandalous and emphasized that no court can prevent law enforcement agencies from performing their duties.
Now, Bello must now appear for arraignment before taking any further action in the case, which involves charges of 80 billion naira fraud. Joining us is the head of media and publicity at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Dele Oyewale. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Oyewale.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the program.
Yeah. We heard, dancing and singing and celebration all around the EFCC's office the whole of yesterday after this news broke. But, tell us what, your reaction is to the appeal court ruling.
Well, we have always been saying it that the commission is focused. We are professional, and we are sensitive to the provisions of the rule of law. Well, you are right to say that there is rejoicing. Well, in respect of the fact that our position is vindicated by the court. The Court of Appeal, about 2 days ago, held that Yahaya Bello should present himself for arraignment. And that is what we have been saying. We have taken the matter to court before Justice Nyesom Wike of the Federal High Court, Abuja. So it is just a vindication of the position of the EFCC that Yahaya Bello must be brought to trial. So what the Court of Appeal has said, just to amplify the position of the commission, and also to establish the fact that we are focused concerning his matter. It's not that we are just lying low and we are doing nothing. We are relying on the appropriate provision of the law, to bring him to justice. And that is what is playing out now.
Also to talk about, in a way, I think that Nigerians subconsciously expect this to be another of those cases that they probably don't see the end to. Former governor snubbing the court, he snubbed 6 court sessions. Yes, he's been scheduled for arraignment, but the fact that he could last this long, having snubbed 6 court sessions. Talk to Nigerians and, share with us why Nigerians should believe that they will see the end of this case and it will not be one of those that will just be swept under the carpet. Because I do not believe that a common, regular, everyday man would have been able to snub 6 court sessions and not have gotten a warrant of arrest at this point.
Well, I want to quickly disagree with you that some cases are swept under the carpet. There is no case before our court that is swept under the carpet. Yes, there may be delay in the resolution of some cases because of some issues of procedures, processes, and the rightful provision of the rule of law. But it is not right to say that there are cases that are swept under the carpet. No. All of our cases are receiving the rightful attention at every level of our court. If there is a delay, the delay will be resolved. Now, concerning this matter, we have taken this matter to court. I have always been saying it, that the Economic and Financial Crime Commission cannot be the accuser and the judge in its own matter. You see, our mandate allows us to investigate, to prosecute, but our mandate does not allow us to adjudicate, to resolve matter in court. It is the job of the judiciary. So we are in court against him. I think we have made about 6 appearances, and the court is doing its rightful work. So I think what we only need is to be patient and to have faith in the judicial process and to have faith in what the Economic and Financial Crime Commission is doing. I believe that justice will be served. And I believe that Yahaya Bello is going to have his rightful place, in court. So I think we should just be more patient. You can see that the judiciary is working, the EFCC is working, and we are going to see the end of this matter in a very, very judicial and judicious way.
Can I also please ask, because you're saying that Nigerians should have patience, and I wonder what the picture of patience in the case against Yahaya Bello would look like, because there are those who would argue that if somebody has snubbed 6 court sessions, that a warrant of arrest should have been issued, because there's no guarantee that, what is the guarantee that, yes, he's been scheduled for arraignment, what's the guarantee that he will show up? If he doesn't show up again, what happens next? Do we keep continuing the cycle?
Well, if you have been following this matter, a warrant of arrest was issued, and that was what empowered us to move to arrest him before he evaded the arrest. So a warrant of arrest was issued. We followed up the processes, and we made effort to arrest him. He evaded the arrest. We declared him wanted. Normally, in any law enforcement agency, that is the rightful procedure. There are suspects that may not want to present themselves for arrest. The right thing to do is to declare such a suspect wanted, which we have done.
So is he still declared
and we
wanted?
We have gone beyond that. We have even drafted charges against him, 19 count charges, and we have taken the matter to court.
Is he still
His
declared
lawyers,
wanted?
our lawyers, they are meeting in court. So I think we should understand how the judiciary works. You know, it is not enough for you to say a suspect that has been declared wanted, a warrant of arrest has been issued. The Economic and Financial Crime Commission has also moved to ensure that the warrant of arrest, is effected. He effected the arrest. So we are still exploring other ways of bringing him to justice.
Can you help us clarify can you please help us clarify if he's still declared wanted?
We have declared him wanted and he remains wanted. When you declare a suspect wanted, what it means is that every law enforcement agency has a responsibility of bringing him to justice, of arresting him. As it is now, Yahaya Bello cannot come into the open. As it is now, Yahaya Bello cannot make himself available anywhere because he has become a fugitive. You understand? Because he has been declared wanted. And we all know the instrumentality of the law. When a suspect is declared wanted, anywhere he's cited, he will be arrested.
So what you're saying is that he's currently in hiding without...
Definitely. He's hiding. He has gone underground. He's hiding.
Yeah, he doesn't have any police, oddly, any security details attached to him currently?
It's not for me to know that. How will I know somebody that is in hiding?
Okay. I would like to ask also, what other law enforcement agents you might be working hand in hand with to ensure that this matter is settled once and for all? Because, like you're saying, he's in hiding.
Every law enforcement agency, both local and international law enforcement agency, they are involved. And at the appropriate time when he's arrested, the public will be made to know.
All right. And why I'm asking, or why I was asking what law enforcement agencies we're working with, is because there have been times when we hear about certain situations that law enforcement agencies would say that they can dig out and fish out anybody if they wanted to in 24 hours. So there are those who are wondering if the law enforcement agents, other law enforcement agents like the police, maybe the DSS, have done adequate digging and are truly not able to find where he is.
You see, let me tell you the way this kind of situation works. When you declare a suspect wanted, we are not going to be talking too much about the processes and the procedures and the intelligence that we are sharing and all of the things that are involved. We are not going to be telling you that. The essential thing is to ensure that he's brought to justice. When I say law enforcement agency, I mean every law enforcement agency. That is the position of the law. He's declared wanted. So anywhere he's cited, he will be arrested. He will be handed over to the EFCC. That is how it works.
Yeah.
So it is not enough for you to say the police, the DSS, any law enforcement agency has a constitutional responsibility to arrest him anywhere he's cited.
All right.
And bring him to the EFCC.
Yeah, they have a responsibility, no doubt, but I'm sure that you also understand why there is a trust deficit between the Nigerian people and the EFCC and, of course, other security agencies. It is because we've had a long history where people have followed stories of high-profile accused, and a lot of people have been disappointed, with the way that these cases eventually turn out.
I think I need to quickly bring you to a kind of remembrance. There are some ex-governors that were declared wanted like Yahaya Bello in the past, and they were arrested, not only in Nigeria. Some were arrested in the UK, some, in some other countries, and they are brought to justice. Yeah. So it's not enough to say that. I think we should also recall some incidences in the past about this kind of situation.
So what I'm referring to, apologies. What I'm referring to is not necessarily those who have been arrested. I'm speaking generally on the success rate of prosecuting high-profile individuals.
When we started this conversation, you rightfully admitted the fact that the decision of the Court of Appeal, was widely acclaimed, was widely embraced, and Nigerians, And that should tell you that there is something that is going on. There is something that is being done.
Yeah,
and very soon, it will be brought to justice.
Yeah, just a final question. How certain are you that the EFCC will go, take this case all the way to the end, and if Yahaya Bello is found guilty, he will go to jail?
It's not a matter of how. I have faith in the efficacy, in the integrity, in the credibility and professionalism of the EFCC. It's that I can take to the bank. Our record of convictions, our record of recoveries, our overwhelming success, in the fight against corruption, they are a testament to all of these things. It's not a matter of how sure I am. We are doing the job, and we continue to do the job. And I can assure you that Yahaya Bello is one out of many cases that we are resolving, and it's going to be brought to justice.
All right. As always, we enjoy, speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We look forward to seeing updates on this case, and of course, having you join us again to share with Nigerians. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.
All right. And now, moving away from the conversation concerning former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello and, of course, the EFCC's spokesperson, let's share with you what Nigerians are saying on other topical issues.
It's not news that the cost of renewing your passport, your Nigerian passport, will cost you more than it usually costs, starting from the 1st of September. This announcement was made at about 10 p.m. Wednesday night, and the Nigerian Immigration Service put on their X account, they said federal government approves an upward review of Nigerian passport fees to ensure quality and integrity. There was a press statement that was released, and in this press statement, it showed what the numbers are. It stated that it will be effective from the 1st of September 2024. 32-page passport booklets with 5-year validity, previously 35,000, will now go for 50,000, while 64-page passport booklets with 10-year validity, which was previously 70,000, will now go for 100,000. He also mentioned that they regret any inconveniences that this might have caused Nigerians. Now, as a result, you know how Nigerians will typically do. Many people will flood the immigration website, especially those who have been delaying or maybe procrastinating with renewing their passports. And I decided to try. When I tried the fast track option visiting the immigration website, this was what I saw, 404 page, not found. And then I tried to do the regular registration, put in my passport details, and it said the passport details provided by you are not found in the system, even though I put in the correct details. Now, that was a bit surprising, a bit disappointing, but I'm not the only one who has felt this kind of way. I think the major consideration would be that it's been a rough time for Nigerians. Whilst we're talking about increase in electricity, increase in pump price of petrol, lack of availability of the product to purchase, and a really difficult time with regards to increase in cost of living, another increment is not what Nigerians are looking for. But let's head to X and see what Nigerians are saying about it. Our first tweet this morning is from Enwagboso, who says, the 10-day notice for the passport price increase is an example of the government's lack of empathy and consideration for its citizens. Official BAT and Nigerian immigration should obviously know this. I recommend reviewing the pricing strategy and considering a reversal, or at the very least, a delayed effective date of January 1st, 2025. The next tweet is from, the next tweet says, oh, 3 bosa for Nigerian immigration. From 25 to 35 to 50, all within a year. You've truly outdone yourselves this time. Let's all give a round of applause for this stellar move in the middle of an economic crisis. You're doing so well. I mean, who needs to consider the cost of living or inflation, right? This increase certainly won't deter anyone from leaving. If anything, it just might speed up the process for those dreaming of greener pastures. This masterstroke will only further cement the notion that the Nigerian government is as sensitive as a rock, completely oblivious to the financial struggles of its citizens. Keep up the great work. Truly, it's the people's hardship that really brings out the best in the government policy. And that's the second tweet. The next one is from Ashiwaju Arowopoko. He says, I can bet that some people paid more to get their passport done expressly. If it's 50 and 100K for 32 and 64 pages respectively, and we will get it done seamlessly without paying a bribe or extra cost, then it's okay. We have the next tweet. The next one says, if this will remove the corruption from the process, then it makes sense since people are already paying over 100K for the 32 pages. This is a common knowledge, but trust people to act obtuse. The only issue I have with this is the notice period. I think at least 3 months notice is okay. And that's from Akorede Omoba. We have another tweet from King A. We in the diaspora still waiting to get our Nigerian passports. Not sure why it's taking so long to get our stuff after biometrics at the Nigerian house. It has been over 2 months waiting. Nobody responds to our emails or phone calls. Not sure what the issue is, but we are still waiting. We have a final tweet. I think our last tweet. Let's take the last tweet. And the last tweet talks about, it says, when I was renewing my passport a few months back, I opted for 10 years passport. When my wife asked me why I was renewing for 10 years, I told her because Nigerians might not be able to get passports by the time the government is done. Guess we see. I think the moral of the story is what you can do in Nigeria tomorrow, what you can do today, do not leave for tomorrow. Because whilst you can do it tomorrow, the cost for doing it tomorrow might not be the same as what you will pay for doing it today. But yeah, there we have it. What are your reactions to the increase in the passport renewal process? Let us know on Twitter or on X at News Central TV. Thank you very much for joining us on today's show. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. My name is Olive Emodi.
And I am Osaogi Ogbonwa. See you tomorrow.